The NBA has two conferences. One of them has Hollywood, has the two MVPs, the late stage dynasty in the Bay, Victor Wembanyama, all the glitz and glamour that make the NBA special.
Let's talk about the other one. You know, people always say that the Eastern Conference, it's inconsequential. There's really only like a couple of good teams, and then there's a few more fighting for position, and everything below like the 5 or the 6 seed really doesn't matter, even if there are some exciting teams that are in funky spots for where they're at in a rebuild. People always say that. You always hear it.
Correct.
People, that's what people say, you know? And
people are spinning. People are
right. Yeah. I guess today we're going to be talking about whether or not people are correct.
Lovely intro. That's the best way to sum up the Eastern Conference. It is seen as the less relevant of the two, and we're playing into that at the start. We're half joking, half not. But either way, what we're going to do today is we're going to look at every single team in this conference. We're going to put them into a tier list, just like we did with the Western Conference a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And, that tier list was more focused on the like 6 or so contending level teams that are out there and how we see them next to each other. Because in some regards, the conference is, seen as wide open with the inexperience of the Thunder, the inexperience now of the Lakers' new look, whatever, right? There's like a lot of competition at the top. We're kind of in the opposite territory here in the East. Outside of the jokes about them being irrelevant, it kind of is a 2-team race up top. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about those playoff teams and how they compare to each other. But spend a lot of time focusing on the rebuilding teams and where they are in the rebuilds, what their future's looking like, and kind of organize them into tier lists like you see on the screen right now, where we separate the good rebuilds and the just, what are you guys doing?
Yeah. I guess that is the nature of one conference being good and one conference being bad, is that one conference is full of teams that are trying to rebuild. And I mean, I don't know. I don't want to spoil how I feel about everybody down there, but the glimmers of hope are few and far between, in my opinion. So I think I'm excited to talk about them because there's a lot of interesting ways to go about it. But,
and that's not to say these teams are without interest. It's not to say half the league isn't worth talking about. It's half the league isn't worth talking about in regards to winning a championship this year. But there's a lot more discourse to be had, a lot of talk about where these teams are going in the future that it's going to be worth a good amount of conversation. So I'm ready.
Yeah, it's funny. The West, we were like, could this team make a run? What would it take for this team to make a run? And in the East, it's like, who the hell is going to be the 8th seed? Like the 8th seed is going to be the most ridiculous team going against the Cleveland Cavaliers.
We're going to be talking a lot about how can this team put themselves in position to get worse? Because it's important they get bad very soon. That's going to be a talking point. That's not even like shady. It's just like it's the truth.
Like I don't know. I don't know. It's like, and for a lot of teams, it's like they don't even want to get bad. Like the way some of these teams are playing lately, it's like, yo, do you know the draft is in like a month and a half? Do you know like shit's coming up? Why are you going on 4-game win streaks right now?
All right, man, let's start. Let's get straight into it. Let's start with the team on the screen right now. Let's focus on the 1 seed, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Goes without saying, our top tier of this list is going to include this team, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't mean to say, I was just opening my notes. So with the West, where it was like Thunder, everybody else, I feel like the East, there's 2 teams and then everybody else. Like you kind of touched on already. Yeah, and the Cavs are absolutely one of those teams. Definitely the surprise of the NBA season as far as best teams in the league go. It's crazy to see where they were at the end of last year between like the health issues and then also the fact that like they were going on these huge winning streaks last season while several of their key players were hurt, whether it was like Mobley missing time or the Garland jaw injury or whatever. They would win like 20 games and then everybody came back and it was like, it doesn't really feel like we added like an all-star and an all-NBA level defender or anything. It doesn't feel like we got that much better. And so to go from that point to where they're at now, which is like actively on a 13-game win streak, like the best record in the league, spearheaded by a trio of all-stars, could have been 4 really with Jared Allen. It's incredible. They're having an incredible season.
Yeah, they went from 16th in the league in offense to 1st this season, and they're 1st by a wide margin. They have a 122 offensive rating. 2nd in the NBA is the Boston Celtics, no surprise, 119.2. That's one of the biggest gaps I've seen in a few years. That's a large gap. 122 is absolutely insane. I'm sure it's the best in NBA history because for the last few years, we constantly see the best in NBA history be set every year because teams are getting so much smarter, faster, better paced, better spaced, etc. So truly legendary offensive season, obviously. They're going to top tier, which is titled, One of You Will Be in the Finals. And I think the way to approach this conversation with the Cavs is, well, how do you feel about their finals equity? Because that's what this tier is called. We think they have a good chance of making the finals. To me, it's a 50-50 shot. A lot of people don't necessarily feel that way. They feel they've seen this team go out sad in the playoffs so many times. And while you have came out better, you're going to have to prove to people, to the casual fan, that you are different and not just the 2015 Hawks all over again, who had less talent, I think, but a similar style of season in which they had a spread out accumulation of talent. 4 guys in the All-Star game. It was seen as a team over pure talent type of contender. And they just got blitzed by a team that had better players,
Yeah. Well, is LeBron James in the Eastern Conference, right?
No, fuck he is not.
Prime LeBron James is not in the Eastern Conference right now. Correct. So I think that's an easy place to start with that conversation. Second of all, I don't really like the kind of label of like postseason dropping team that this Cavaliers squad has gotten over the past few years, because if you look to last year, it's just not the team that's going to be playing this year. Nobody was healthy. Even Donovan Mitchell, by the end of the Celtics series, where he fought so valiantly to give them like 40 points per game or whatever he ended up averaging, even he wasn't 100%, much less the guys that were sitting out of those games. And then if you look to the year before that, where they kind of got this label of being soft or not being good on a playoff stage or whatever, when they lost to the New York Knicks in a pretty sad fashion, they just kind of like got bullied physically. I think they were just such a younger team that it doesn't feel fair to like look at where they're at now, look at the steps forward that specifically Evan Mobley has taken as like a physical specimen, adding on muscle and becoming more comfortable with the ball in his hands, to take this version of that team and be like, they have all the same problems that they had when he was 21 years old. Like the big four was like 26, 24, 21, 22 when you talk about their ages in that series.
The best part about being a hater is it doesn't matter if what you're saying makes sense. You can just say the same narratives, because the conversation is always these young guys are unproven. They haven't done the playoffs. They need experience. What you just described to me is like 3 years of experience. It's always they haven't been there until they have. They've done that a few times. They've gone outside a few times. I promise you they learned from it. What they learned last year, JB Bickerstaff is not going to be the guy taking to the promised land, despite everything he does well. It wasn't working for the talent they had. Because they learned from that, like you guys wanted them to, they went out and they got Kenny Atkinson, who does have the answers of how to utilize his talent. He did figure out how to make Evan Mobley come into his own, put him in better spots on the court, have him space out to the three-point line, have him use his length to attack people and really make sense next to Jared Allen a little bit more. He really, really unlocked Darius Garland as an off-ball player, so he can really thrive next to Donovan Mitchell and not just take turns. This is tangible adjustments they made because of the experience that you're describing that people, for some reason, don't care about when they say the experience. They just say, I haven't seen the outcome be what I like yet. It's not even about the actual experience. It's they haven't won yet, so I don't think they can.
Yeah. Specifically, the Mobley Allen fit jumps out to me as like this hugely different thing where like last year when I talk about them going on those big win streaks and then it not feeling like they were at full power, even when they got Mobley back, it was because Mobley and Jared Allen felt so redundant last season, to the point where by the end of the year, it definitely felt like there was going to be some hard decisions made in the offseason. And thankfully, they didn't end up doing that. They brought a new coach in who figured out, hey, if you make guys start to guard Mobley with the ball in his hands, it alleviates a ton of those overlapping skill set issues that the Cavs had when he and Allen were on the floor together. And then you also get the added benefit of always having like an incredible defensive anchor, lob threat kind of guy on the floor, no matter who you're running out there, be it like Garland or Donovan Mitchell as the ball handler.
No, it's honestly, I'm sure it's been done before. I can't think off the top of my head, but it's very rare throughout modern NBA history to have the ability to always have an elite rim protector and always have an elite lead guard. Like two of each is, I don't want to say unprecedented because I'm sure it's happened before. I'm just blanking in my head, but it's so rare that I can't think of somebody off the top of my head that has that unique combination of lineups, as well as now after getting DeAndre Hunter, having like 4 very capable playoff wings in Hunter, Dean Wade, Isaac Okoro, Max Strus, and I'm forgetting one other. I forget.
You said Wade, Okoro, Strus, and Hunter?
Yeah, let's just settle it there.
That's 4. Yeah, I mean, that's a good rotation. That's better than like a lot of playoff teams.
Exactly. And then you have Sam Merrill in there who can play too, who's obviously a little bit smaller. But like, again, you have the best, most balanced lineup of guards and bigs, and then very, very capable wing room that's better than a lot of other teams have. This team on a normal year, on paper at least, so again, we're talking on paper, in a normal year, it would be more surprising than not if they didn't win the finals. They have a plus 11 net rating. They're probably going to win 67 games or so, and the roster's just balanced. But then again, I said this tier is titled, one of you will be in the finals.
Yes.
So there's a reason we're not confident they're going to be in the finals, and that is the presence of the Boston Celtics, who, despite everything we just said, all the glaze we gave to the Cavs, are still just as terrifying, if not more.
Yeah. Yeah, before we move to, like, so I was writing down questions about, like, the best teams, like, what I was thinking about what might cause, like, the end of their season or whatever, and I think a legitimate question about the Cavs is there a moment where, like, their backcourt options being so susceptible on defense really hurts them? And I think when you talk about specifically the matchup with the Celtics and specifically the way we've seen those matchups go this season, even though they obviously just made that sick-ass, like, 20-point comeback or whatever the last time they matched up. When you look at a player like Darius Garland, like Donovan Mitchell, like Ty Jerome even, it's a cast of guys that when you match up with a team like the Boston Celtics, who's like, hey, if there's a mismatch on the floor, we'd be very happy to go find it. You worry about those guards being able to consistently generate stops. And so that's what I'm concerned about with the Cavs, and that's one of the biggest strengths of the Boston Celtics this year.
Exactly. So, spoiler alert, Celtics are also in this top tier. That goes without saying. And you nailed it on the head. The Cavs are the better basketball team this season. You know, start to finish, respecting what we're seeing on the court for these 64 games we've seen so far, they're the better team. Better offense. Not as good of defense, but the offensive gap is bigger there, I think. They have a better net rating overall. They're going to win more games. They have more players playing at an all-star level, better depth. The coaching, you could say that the Celtics have the better coach overall. We've seen him do it in the playoffs, but Kenny Atkinson might win Coach of the Year. There's no big gap there in the regular season. The Cavs check every box, and normally that would make me confident that they're going to make the finals, despite the fact that the Celtics are the defending champions and have that like remaining clout where every single champion the previous year gets assumed they're going to make it back until they don't, no matter what. Yeah. There's that bias at play. But the Cavs match up so well with them. I mean, the Celtics match up so well with the Cavs because Jason Tatum has developed into a legitimately elite bullier of small defenders.
Yes.
Darius Garland is going to have his work cut out for him. And while the Cavs have all these big strengths, we saw in this game on screen right now versus the Lakers, the Celtics can lock in and play elite defense with anybody. They're just as good as the Thunder when they lock it in this way. And that could very well be the difference. Like, that's why it's a 50-50 split to me and not Cavs are clear favorites.
Yeah. With the Celtics, I feel like a lot of people kind of, I don't know if it's like hesitate to like them or there's like a certain coolness factor that the Celtics might be lacking. But
yeah, tell him Kellen Cowherd.
He doesn't have it, you know. I close my eyes, I imagine Jason Tatum. I don't see anything, that kind of thing. No, but like I mean, a lot of the stuff that the Celtics are kind of dominant with, it feels like it almost boils down to like cold, hard numbers where like everything is really clicking for both teams. Even if the Cavs are going as well as they can go and the Celtics are going as well as they can go, it feels like mathematically it's just this huge uphill battle to consistently generate good looks on a defense as good as the Celtics, who really, they run full lineups where there's no Darius Garland types. There's not that many people on the floor for the Celtics that you look at on a matchup and you're like, oh, sweet, we can attack this guy. It's just like a full lineup of great players. And then on the other end, the Celtics just consistently generate such incredible offensive looks, even though they might not have that tier 1 level offensive player, depending on how you feel about Tatum. But like they clearly don't have like a Jokic or a Luka level guy on that end. But they, as a team, as a unit, are just consistently generating wide open.
And they got the closest thing to it. Jason Tatum is the closest you could possibly be to being one of those top 5 players in the world without being that. Well, I think he's probably 5th in the world. So, but whatever the top tier is to you, the Jokic, Giannis, Shea, Luka when he's fully healthy, whatever it may be. Tatum is like, you can't be more knocking on those doors than Tatum is. So when you have the best 2 through 5 in the NBA next to him, you're always going to have the talent advantage or at least even keel like your level talent-wise with a team like the Cavs who are also stacked. And, the Celtics have kind of just like mastered basketball from a math perspective. Their three-point volume and the lack of threes they allow is a proven recipe that will always keep them in any game because their coach is a fucking supercomputer and they execute it so well with a team full of supercomputers that the only reason that we're saying they aren't the clear-cut favorite team is because one, Drew Holiday's taking a step back this year. Jaylen Brown isn't having a particularly efficient year. And Kristaps Porzingis is a concept at this point that we don't know if he's going to be available when it matters most. If those things were the case, they would be clear-cut the favorite. But because they're not getting like the perfect best-case scenario health-wise right now, it's opened the door for the Cavs to come in and have a chance.
Yeah.
But we're going to have a hard time predicting the series when the time comes come playoff series.
I always hear Celtics fans, especially after the last Cavs matchup where they blow that big lead, it's like, we didn't have Holiday, we didn't have Porzingis, this shit's fake, it's not canon. And I'm like,
you typically don't.
hey, it's one thing to not have Drew Holiday. I'll say you didn't have Drew Holiday. That's fine. If you're like really counting on Porzingis to be there for 4 playoff rounds, like I got a bridge to sell you, dude. Like it's just he's good. He's a talented player, and whenever they have him, it's like this insane luxury to just have like another all-star guy out there. But in terms of like what I'm looking at for a potential conference finals matchup, I'm not penciling in 7 games of Porzingis or anything.
Yeah, a luxury is a good way to frame it. And they can win without him, as we saw last year in the playoffs. They won series without him. I think the Cavs, they probably need Porzingis to beat them. I think they're good enough that we should give the Cavs that respect that the Celtics better hope they're at full power. And I'm sure in the early rounds, they will do what they need to ensure that KP is healthy there.
If that motherfucker sees the floor in the first round, you're ridiculous. You're an unserious team. Do not let him go out there, dude. Oh my God.
But yeah, we'll see where it goes. We got a lot of other teams to talk about, but this 2-horse race really defines a conference. So that is as far as the teams that are super important for a finals perspective go. I think it's these two. So let's pivot a little bit and let's go to the bottom of this tier list now.
Okay.
Let's talk about the other teams that define this. Let's talk about some of the rebuilding teams. Because like you see on this tier list, we have good and we have bad rebuild. To me, these are two very distinct things. And they're not even necessarily defined by how many wins you're getting this season, good or bad. It's not necessarily defined by who's on your roster now, young core-wise. Like, that's part of it.
It's also like the process. It's like cars. It's like Doc Holliday. He's like, you got to turn left to go right or whatever. Sometimes you got to lose to win, baby. That's what it is. So if you're mad that I'm putting a team with 9 wins in good rebuild territory, fucking seethe. I don't care. Like that's just what the game is.
Washington Wizards. We'll start there. Where do you want to put them?
I'll put them in good rebuild, baby. I'll do it. I will say.
Interesting you say that because I think some people will kind of think about them as like the poster boy for stupid team over the last 5 years. Which is really like the
I don't think that's an unfair thing.
Stink.
Yeah.
I don't either. But this past 12 months, I think they've kind of changed tides. What do you see now?
Okay, so they changed ownership post Bradley Beal thing, I believe. I believe they're under different ownership, or like a different guy is at least running the team GM wise. And so the Bradley Beal, Porzingis, Kyle Kuzma era, it's one of the most poorly run moments in recent NBA history. It was a disgusting team that, like, I don't blame anybody for still having, like, stink left over. If you're, like, the guys who put that team out there are supposed to be, like, building towards a good future now. But if you look at not only the way they drafted this previous draft, where in a weaker class, it was still one of the better, like, hauls, I suppose, between Keyshawn George, Bub Carrington, and Alex Sarr. They've got a fair amount of promising young guys. But then in addition to that, the way that they have, like, rotated out the vets pretty rapidly, like getting rid of Kyle Kuzma, who, you know, we could talk about how he's playing with the Bucks in a little bit, but how he was playing with the Wizards was straight up destructive, like one of the most destructive players in basketball in terms of like on-court production and how he limited some of the young guys. Moving him out and bringing in Chris Middleton and Marcus Smart, two, you know, like longtime NBA vets, former Defensive Player of the Year, NBA champion type guys who are, you know, if you don't want to say washed, you could at least say over the hill a little bit. But bringing in guys who can establish a culture and show a team full of young guys how to work hard and build towards being like a serious team. I like all of the stuff that they're doing. Yeah.
And, you know, it helps when you enter a draft class with the number 2 pick and the best prospect on the board tells the number one team, I want nothing to fucking do with you. Don't even think about taking
Don't
you
do
morons.
it. That's so funny. Oh my god.
It's certainly helpful. You said they walk away in a weak class with a pretty good haul. Yeah, because they got the best guy. They got the guy that's
What's
most
hilarious is they would have taken Ricochet 100% too. It's so like it's the kind of luck that the Wizards historically have not had.
Yeah. And not to say Sarr is like some super future star, but he could be. I don't know. He's a high ceiling. He has a good frame. Like, he could turn out to be an elite defender. He could be Jonathan Isaac that moves a little better and stays healthy. Like, that's in the range of outcomes, which is a very good player to walk away with. Jordan Poole is somebody that's been exciting. He's really had a bounce back year after a disastrous first year at the team. Yeah. Corey Kispert is going to be a good part of a team whenever they have their stars, and he can be a complimentary player. He looks like he'll be good. We all like Bilal Coulibaly.
Hilarious because my girlfriend likes the Wizards a lot, and so like every trade deadline for like 3 years, I've been like, yeah, Kispert's probably gone. Like he could play a role on a good team. It just seems like somebody that a good team would try to pick up. And after every trade deadline, he's still here, just like shooting 40% from three and trying hard on defense. And it's like, what? We're winning 10 games. What are you doing here?
Yeah, there's a lot of teams we're gonna talk about that they don't have their established superstar yet, but they have a lot of pieces in play that when they get that guy, he's immediately going to walk into a young core that's built to enable him to succeed. He's going to have defenders. He's going to have shooters. He's going to have complimentary ball handlers. It's a good place for like a Cooper Flagg to get drafted to and immediately be in a good situation to develop, which is all you can ask for a team that's in year one of their rebuild.
Yeah. That's one other thing I've seen. Like I don't know. And it's like fake Twitter shit where if I see one person on Twitter say one thing, my brain immediately files away and I'm like, everyone's saying this. But I have
two, I should say.
Yeah, like they've only had one rebuild draft, really. Yeah. Like even the Coulibaly pick that they got, who I like, he's solid, he's promising or whatever. Even that was in a year where they were still running out Kuzma and Beal and the ghost of Porzingis or whatever. And so, like, I think they ended up winning like 35 games. It was not really a tanking year. And so heading into what is essentially their second real locked-in draft, I like where they're at. It just seems like a team that's making more good moves. The process around everything is a lot more understandable than it has been in previous years.
Yeah, and I'll put them in good simply off the fact that when they get a top 3 or 4 pick this year, that if the guy is good and can be an all-star level talent, which it looks like this class will give them, they're immediately going to be in a very good spot. So good rebuild for me.
Good rebuild.
Who's a bad rebuild? Tell me a team that belongs in bad rebuild.
Oh man, you're putting me on the spot for bad rebuild. You want to do the Raptors? You want to talk about the Raptors?
Interesting. So you feel like they're a bad rebuild. Okay, tell me why the Raptors deserve bad rebuild.
I don't.
Is it probably because they don't really want to rebuild? Is that going to do it?
Yeah. I guess a theme that might permeate some of these teams is rebuilding is a concept you have to fully commit to. You have to throw yourself into not being good. You don't get to like be in the play-in and rebuild. It's just not something that happens. And so the Raptors, when you look at like the decisions they've made over the past couple of years, I'm a big Scotty Barnes guy. I like Scotty Barnes. He's been an all-star. The jury is out on whether or not he's a legitimate franchise guy, but I'm very happy having him on the team and really paying him the extension money that they did because I think he will be a good player. Brandon Ingram, I don't love it. RJ Barrett, he's been playing out of his mind. It still just doesn't make a ton of sense. It feels like we're putting this team together to be like the 7 seed for the next couple of years or something. Like I think they will be a lot better than they have been this season, especially if they get like a full healthy year from everybody. But it doesn't necessarily feel like a team that's trending towards being like a conference finals threat in 3 or 4 years.
I think they're a weird one because Raptors fans, I think there'll be a split decision on the reaction to what you just said. Because there's a lot of Raptors fans that are pissed that they're not tanking hard. At one point, they had top 4 odds for Cooper Flagg, and they've since been passed up by a couple teams because they keep winning and they keep trotting out lineups that are clearly attempting to be a play-in team. They're trying to make a push or establish a winning culture around their new coach, do all the typical I want to compete in my small market activities, which I can't like fully come out here and be like, BS, lose games, don't put butts in seats. Like, I get it in terms of practicality, but they are in such a unique spot where you do have talented players. Quickly is good. He has had some terrible injury luck and looks like shit because of it, but I imagine he'll bounce back in a better year.
Is he better than Zach LaVine? Who's to say, guys? Come on.
God, no.
Who knows? The jury's out on that. Who knows, guys?
Scotty Barnes, you said the jury's out on whether or not he can be a true franchise player. I'm kind of out on him being your best offensive player, but I'm super fucking in on him being the perfect secondary star. Next to a go-to scorer. Like, that's a perfect spot for me. So you have a good point guard. You have some interesting wings. You have your second option that maybe will prove us wrong and be your best player. If you could just commit to the tank for 1 year and get Dylan Harper, get Cooper Flagg, you could be in a great rebuild situation next year. But the fact that they're like going away from what is a very clear 1 year to purposely be bad, I guess we can give him bad rebuild just because the practice is really stupid this year.
And then like, so what? Scotty and Quickly are each like pretty early 20s. I want to say 22, 23-ish years old, maybe 24. And then you have RJ Barrett, who is also pretty young and he's playing well and everything. And then Brandon Ingram's like 27 right now. And so it just kind of feels to me like you said, like if you commit to the tank for 1 or 2 years, I think you come out on the other end of that with not just a similarly talented team. Like, I think the level this team is going to be at is like very realistic. If you tank and like make good decisions in the draft, you could be at that level in the short future. But you would also then be a team that has a very bright like decade of basketball ahead of them, where they like if somebody takes an all-star, all-NBA level leap, all of a sudden you're a team that could really make some noise in the playoffs, whereas with the stuff they've built to like go forward the next 3 or 4 years, I'm sure they'll have an exciting season. Maybe I'm not even sure about it, but like, I don't know. 6 years from now, I just am confused about what this Raptors team looks like.
Yeah. I mean, they're doing a decent job of this whole trying to build from the middle thing and like toe both lines. But regardless, we're not going to be people. We're not a part of this Raptors organization that has to worry about their revenue flow and has to worry about putting butts in seats. So
I never worry about that. If teams that prioritize that, I hate it. And we'll get to a team that does it too damn much. But yeah, Raptors, bad rebuild.
Let's throw a team in mid. It goes without saying, we're putting the Chicago Bulls in the mid tier.
Okay. And well, this is all right. Yeah. Go.
Because they're not rebuilding. They're trying to win every year. They are going for the play-in every single year. And this year, their season is defined by trading Zach LaVine finally and being unable to trade Nikola Vucevic, who's still on the roster, helping them compete, right? Helping them be mid on purpose.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
And their most recent stretch is defined by Josh Giddey, putting up lots of numbers on the board and securing himself a $35 million contract this summer. That much is
he's going for 40. I'm telling you.
Generational wealth. It's on the way, Mr. Giddey. And, I have this pulled up. His last 10 games, the numbers are 20 points, 7.9 assists, 9.6 rebounds. Hooping, right? 64% true shooting, efficient as hell. Let's take a look further. 2-point percentage, 49%. Less than it was over the previous 54 games. And he is currently shooting 53% from 3 in these last 10 games.
Okay.
I wonder if that's sustainable. I wonder if that's real.
Well, who's to say? Are you just going to write him off? Because, 53% from 3 is fake. Oh, wow. Being terrible at 2s for a guy who historically hasn't been able to shoot, that's not good. Being unlivable on the defensive end of the floor is really difficult. Oh, my God. What a negative Nancy, dude.
Secure that money, Joshua. Very good for you. Nevertheless, your team is mid. You're their bright spot, and we'll see if you continue to be bright after your 3-point percentage normalizes. No. I have nothing else to say about the Bulls. We all know where they belong, who they are, what they're going for. We've talked about it at length. The mid-tier should just be labeled Bulls.
Yeah. I mean, this was the team I was talking about when I say it focuses too much on butts and seats.
They love some butts.
They love butts. 100%. Like, it's just I do wonder what I could offer Arturas Karnisovas that he would choose over being like the 9 seed. It feels like if I was like anything you want in the world or the 9 seed, he would be like,
Probably being the 8 seed.
Yeah, I guess. it's just I don't know. It's a long series of decisions by a person who almost seems unable to dream. like unable to aspire to higher heights than like what you should want more for yourself than this. You should,
bro. Unlock your imagination. Bring some
like
whimsy into your life.
seriously, dude. It's yeah.
Read a fucking book.
I guess, man. There's more to this, you know.
Open up a piece of fiction.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're mid. They should get their own tier of just it's Bulls. You know. I don't think it's going to change anytime soon because there's also no hot seat element to it at all. Like the ownership and the front office are completely on the same page of not giving a fuck about anything that we just said.
You know what? Let's just fill out this mid tier real quick because I think this is a pretty light tier this year. Let's throw in the Atlanta Hawks into mid. You know, there's a famous stat line that they were like 500 for the last 10 seasons combined. I don't know where that stands right now after this year, but they have historically been 500 almost every single season. They belong in mid. They're not rebuilding. They're trying to quickly retool around Trae Young, but they don't have their first round pick this year. Jalen Johnson's hurt. It's kind of just a lost year. Kind of sucks. There they are in mid. And Miami Heat, pushing me Butler trade, are also firmly in mid, right?
Yeah, it's disappointing. What's hilarious? We've talked about Bam Adebayo on this pod before, right? And like the season that he's having.
Yeah, and how disappointing we were to start the year because he was so uninterested in getting to the rim and so obsessed with shooting tough jumpers that he wasn't good at.
Yeah.
That was very frustrating early in the year.
So Bam Adebayo's last 18 games, 23 points per game, 10 rebounds per game, 4 assists per game on 63% true shooting. He's like 54% from the field, like 36-ish% from three on limited volume. He's only taking like 3 a game, which I'm fine with. I'm fine if he wants to take a few. I think his jumper is good enough that he'll be sustainable at it. So he's looked really good, right? And then you look to the guy who made the All-Star game in Tyler Hero in that exact same stretch of games. He has been 23 points per game on 53% true shooting, 29% from three on 10 attempts per game from Tyler Hero.
Cold stretch for sure.
And so it's just like, yeah, to finally get Bam sick, to be like, hey, you're starting next to Ware, and we're going to run this double big thing, and your life's going to be a lot easier. You unlock him, and the second that happens, it's Hero's like, maybe I'm not actually that good anymore. It's tough. It's extremely tough.
And the good thing about
Heat.
that is that's what you just described from Tyler Hero is mostly the 3-point shot slump is not going well for him. And that's not something you expect to be a thing for a while, right? Like 3-point shooting has variance. But you don't love to see it, and especially in the context of us saying this team is either mid or you're a playoff team. They might squeeze into the 8 seed or the 7 seed in the play-in tournament, but they're not worthwhile to talk about in that regard. So I think they're firmly mid because these other teams we're talking about also might squeeze into the 8 seed because the East is that fucking down bad in the middle.
Yeah. Guy who doesn't understand 3-point variance. Josh Giddey's the best fucking player on the planet, and I would not touch Tyler Hero with a 10-foot pole. Tyler Hero's terrible. Josh Giddey's literally the best player I've ever seen.
All right, let's move up to the you got a shot kid territory of this tier list. Okay. We talked about the top 2 teams up top, the ones that are obviously the defining teams of this conference. Who do you view as a third best team in this conference that, let's say one of those teams, somebody gets their knee snapped in half and something doesn't go well for them, they're out of the running for reasons outside of their control, or let's say they get upset in the second round. Who's most likely to upset one of these teams?
Oh, man. I'm incredibly torn. I have 3 teams in this tier that I feel I feel like all have different angles to them. Third best team in the East, I'll play it safe. I guess I'll still go New York Knicks, even with the Jalen Brunson injury. But I don't feel great about it.
You got a shot kid is that's so perfect to describe the Knicks. You know, they went all in, they trade for Mikal Bridges, they give up all the draft picks in the world because they're willing to overpay because they feel like they're this close and he could be the missing key, right? To give them that wing they need. Then they go out and get Karl-Anthony Towns because they said, fuck it, we got close. Let's blow the roof off this bitch. Let's give ourselves a crazy talent ceiling. No depth needed. Just 5 players that are going to play 52 minutes a game. Yeah. And that means they're as all in as all in gets. And they have enough talent that you got to say, you got a shot, I guess. But we don't feel like it was a worthwhile endeavor, right? We don't feel like they really have a chance of being in the same tier as the top 2 teams. So the best they can hope for is having a shot.
Yeah, it's tough because if if the level they're at right now, it's a level I would be comfortable being like, okay, now you put all your picks to the center. But they already did that to get to this level, to get on like the outside looking in. And so, it's just a little tough where I do feel like they're spearheaded by probably the best duo I don't know about that. One of like the 2, 3, 4 best duos in the conference for sure. Ian Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns.
I think we should narrow the focus there and say they're led by one of the best players in the conference, Jalen Brunson. Because you say duo, you mean Jalen Brunson. Shout out Cat. He's having a very good offensive season. He's been ridiculously efficient playing off of Brunson. Their 1-2 pick and roll attack is amazing. And Cat is back to playing the 5, which is incredibly important for maximizing his offense. His game is often misunderstood.
Don't ask about the defense. Don't ask.
We'll get there.
Just don't ask. There. Just it's not important, his game is quit asking.
His game is misunderstood. I think people view him as this like post scorer when he's obviously one of the better shooting bigs to ever play the game. We give him that credit, right? And what makes him special is he can shoot that well. And then when teams are forced to respect that shot and close out hard on him and stretch him out, he's fast. He can attack and close out
2 offensive fouls a game.
That too. Boom! But he's really good at attacking closeouts. If you have Jakob Poeltl playing up high on him, trying to shot the 3, he'll sprint right by him and stretch him out. That's hard for him to do when he's playing power forward next to Rudy Gobert, who, as soon as he attacks that closeout, Gobert's standing there with his fucking lead hands out, ready to clog up the paint. So playing the 5 has been fantastic for Cat, getting back to being allowed to have the space needed to get his game off as a driver. That's led to crazy efficiency off of Jalen Brunson, who's one of the best scoring guards in the league.
Yeah.
Playing the 5 is also detrimental to Karl Anthony Towns' defense. We said, good job, Cat, last year when he learned to play the 4 next to Gobert. It worked really well and built an elite defense. There is simply no world in which you will have a good defense with Cat playing the fucking center position. It's not going to happen ever.
Yeah, I feel like this has been an interesting experiment into, okay, if you have like one of the best defensive wings in the NBA, how livable can he make a unit where the point guard and the center both suck on defense, are both like really bad? And it turns out the answer is he can't really make it that livable. Shout out to OG Anunoby. Yeah. Shout out to the frustrations that he gave Luka Doncic the other night. I thought he did a really good individual job on Luka, but he's just not a transformative defender in that way. And so you're forced to just concede a ton of really good looks if you're the Knicks, because you're like Brunson and Towns both can't hold up that well on that end of the floor, even though I did want to glaze Brunson. Like he's been playing at a legit,
let's glaze him.
Like top 10-ish level. Like we left the playoffs last year and he was, what the fuck, dude? Like, Jesus Christ, that's graphic. Oh my God. What is wrong with you? You thought I was just going to skip over both hands. What the fuck? Okay. All right. Okay. Both hands. Sloppy, disgusting, gross. What's wrong with you, dude? Oh my God.
I can't breathe. Sloppy, disgusting,
gross.
Jalen Brunson is a clutch player. Jalen Brunson is the clutch player of the year. The way he can walk down teams as a scorer and be a threat from every spot on the court, to make a 3 off the dribble, to get his mid-range floater off, to craftily finish around contact, to draw fouls, to play make. He is an insane threat as a scorer. I think he's still the most underrated star in the league, because he is like 70% of what Shea brings on offense, in the same archetype of go-to scorer that can drive an offense and be just unstoppable. And I don't know, he just doesn't get the respect because he started off as a second-round pick and backup or whatever.
Yeah, so Brunson, you feel incredibly comfortable in any postseason situation. Your best guy on offense can probably go bar for bar with the other best guy on the other team, at least in the East. There's some guys in the West, but like we got to get to the finals before we even think about that if you're the Knicks. My big concern is the fact that like OG and Mikal Bridges, how many games do you think they have both shot at least 35% from 3 in this season? Both of them
combined?
Like I don't know, but like yeah, combined. So like they have each shot at least 35%. How many games do you think that's happened for the Knicks this year?
17?
9.
I was gonna say that at first, but I thought I was being harsh.
Yeah, no, it's 9. It's 9. And so if you look at their numbers, it's really been a tale of two halves for both guys, where in the first like 30 games of the season, OG was incredible and Mikal was really bad. And then recently-ish, Mikal has been better and OG has kind of leveled out a little bit, to the extent where in the last like 25 games, Mikal Bridges has been 34% from 3. And so when you're not getting all NBA level defense, and you're not getting incredible floor spacing, and you're not getting a lot of juice on the ball, like a guy who can really like not only create his own shot, but like generate the defense getting into rotation or something. I do feel like those are the kind of players where the margins of a conference finals series would be lost, especially when you talk about a team that doesn't really have that much depth or margin for injury, which they just sustained in the Jalen Brunson ankle thing. He'll be out for a couple weeks after this video goes up.
Yeah, and like X's and O's wise, when you have Cat, you're so limited in the types of defenses you can run because he's so unversatile in the types of ways he can be deployed. Mm-hmm. You really kind of have to just put him in a drop coverage and pray you have the on-ball defenders that can fight over and disrupt enough that he can survive there and not be exposed, or you play him up high on the screen and really play aggressively and concede open shots from the corner like the Nuggets do, which isn't a good place to start from. You don't really want to do that. Like that's not, unless you have extremely talented wings, which, I mean, I guess that was the equation when they went out and they got Mikal Bridges, but he hasn't been that good defensively to make that kind of play hard, scramble around the rotation defense work like the Lakers have been doing. That's not really something you've gotten out of him. So you kind of are just stuck in a really, really unideal, unversatile defensive situation that maybe you can make up for if you were just amazing offensively like they were early in the year, but they've kind of petered off a little bit for the reasons you said. And at times it kind of feels like Jalen Brunson versus the world as a creator because those wings don't have a lot of on-ball juice themselves. Yeah. And Tom Thibodeau isn't a particularly inventive offensive coach. So it's not a good situation. They just clearly need something. They need a lot of luck to make a deep run.
The two big questions I wrote down for them as a team that I do take seriously and do treat as good. The first question is, assuming health, which is this massive question mark, would Mitchell Robinson make a difference in their defensive woes? And I do think he probably would to some degree. If you could start him and shift Cat to the 4, I think it would become immediately a more livable situation on that end of the floor. The second question I have for them is if they can't default to Jalen Brunson, please save us in the clutch of games. If for whatever reason that's unavailable to them, does this team have any like reliable juice that you're comfortable in like scoring?
Absolutely zero other looks. Literally zero other looks. It's literally Jalen Brunson is going off and carrying us, or if he's in the torture chamber, or he's in the Derek White holding cell, whatever it may be. You got nothing. You have zero other options.
That's what it felt like the other night. Like not to keep like going back to the Lakers game or whatever, or talking about his injury, but when he sprained his ankle, he was in that mode where it was like Jalen Brunson fucking 15 points in the fourth quarter or whatever, not missing a shot, getting to the line or scoring a basket every single time. He hurts his ankle and immediately, like you didn't really need to watch the rest of the game. It was just like, oh, the Knicks don't have any way they can consistently score. It's just not going to happen for them. And so if that comes up in a playoff setting, like I just don't have very high hopes for them. So they got a shot, kid. You got a shot, kid. But it's not a good one. Not a great one. Okay. Who do you want to talk about next?
Let's go back to the rebuilding teams a little bit.
All right.
Brooklyn Nets. Good rebuild or bad rebuild? This summer they traded Mikal Bridges and they got a haul for him. They low-key, I don't want to say scam the Knicks, but it's scam adjacent. They got more draft capital than he's realistically worth because the Knicks were in a situation where they had to be big-time buyers and they ran away with that. Since then, they've done pretty much nothing smart. They did not trade Cam Johnson, who was at his peak value and would have enabled them to tank even harder. And they are stuck right now as the 12th best team in the conference without top 4 lottery odds, despite finally committing to rebuild seemingly. It's just a weird year. Very weird year. They don't have a young core yet because it's the first year, and they didn't position themselves the best they could in that first year. Very strange.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. Like because the Mikal move is such a Kickstarter to a rebuild. To get that haul and then immediately plunge yourself into the lottery odds of a really deep, talented class. Like there maybe like if you want to talk about Flag versus Wembanyama or whatever, obviously Wemby's the better guy. But like if you look at that Wemby class and you look at picks 2, 3, 4, a lot of people have a lot more confidence that the second, third, fourth picks in this upcoming draft class are going to be better, are more likely going to be guys that could change your life if you're like a tanking franchise. And Brooklyn's like, we don't want it. We're cool on that. Just, yeah. We're gonna win 8 games in February. So yeah, we're good on that. We're gonna be one of the best defensive teams in the league. And
it's just a bad rebuild, man.
Yeah, it's a bad rebuild. It's one of the standards for bad rebuilds, in my opinion, because, yeah, like I love the picks that they got for Mikal, but those picks would be magnified in value, multiplied in value, if when they come around in whatever 3-4 years, whenever they really start to kick in and the Knicks could really potentially be bad, those picks would matter more if you have established a core of talented young players, and then you could use those picks to take big swings on guys that could push you into an incredibly talented tier. And it just doesn't look like they're trending towards that right now.
When we talk about the most down bad, suffering fan bases in the league over the last decade of NBA basketball, or really probably across history, the Nets don't get brought up enough. They get the lifeline of getting Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving after they had to watch Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown be drafted to the fucking Celtics with their own picks because of their own stupid decision in the 2012 season. And they get the lifeline. They get Kevin Durant. They get Kyrie Irving. They eventually get James fucking Harden.
Holy
and a bunch of other big name free agents like Marcus Aldridge, Blake Griffin.
This is one of the best teams I've ever heard of. What?
You would think. They start the playoffs and they beat the piss out of the Bucks for 2 games. They win by 40. They win by 50. Oh my God, we're going to win the finals. And then from that moment in which Kyrie Irving rolled his ankle in Game 3 of the first round of 2021, it's been nothing but unmatched suffering. And now they can't even rebuild right. It's quite pitiful.
Kevin Durant's shoe, a little bit smaller. They probably win the finals, bro. They probably win the finals,
Man.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
What do you want to do with the Charlotte Hornets? They are, I think early in the season, we would have called them a good rebuild when the year started, and they hired Charles Lee. They had Brandon Miller in the door. They drafted Tijon Salon, which was obviously a dubious pick, but it was another young player. New coach. LaMelo Ball's cooking. Everything looked good. I did mention to start the season, I would say that. We're not currently at the start of the season. We're quite deep into it. LaMelo Ball fell off of the Linsanity run to start the year in terms of he's no longer averaging 30 points per game, being an absolute gunner. He's just kind of an inefficient 24 after his injury because the team is in a terrible, terrible situation, and he can't get his game off in that bad situation because most players can't, right? He looks more normal. Brandon Miller's out for the year. Tijon Salon is the worst player in the NBA, albeit he's the youngest, so we'll cut him some slack for the next at least a year, I guess. But he's not looking like a good pick. They tried to trade Mark Williams. It got rescinded because his body's broken. Does not feel like Charles Lee is building.
It got rescinded because the Lakers didn't want it. It's ridiculous. How is that allowed? Whatever. It's fine.
Charles Lee does not seem to be building a strong winning culture for the first year, at least.
No.
Is it bad rebuild territory?
Yeah, probably. If you think about like they've been doing it for a little while, and to come out on the other end of it with not necessarily bad players, but just like this like everything hinges on the health of guys that it seems like a Hail Mary that everyone would be healthy at the same time between LaMelo and Mark Williams and Brandon Miller to some degree. So yeah, I would call it a bad rebuild. I'd be fun. Like, I think this is the closest to good rebuild that you could still be considered bad rebuild. It's just like, I don't know. I'm not that high on it for whatever reason. How do you feel about it?
I agree with everything you said. We don't got to talk more about the Hornets. They are just bad franchise.
Okay.
I don't even think Hornets fans
get them out of my
disagree.
face, son. Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck off. I just realized all the good rebuilds are in the West. We are done with the 4 rebuilding teams out here that are trying to rebuild, and we have 1 of them in good rebuild, 3 of them in bad rebuild. Well, this is why the East stays the East.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. Like, some of it's luck. If you want to call the Hornets thing luck, it's fine, but you can't call the Nets thing luck. You can't call the Raptors thing luck. Those teams are actively making decisions that are just unserious. As far like there's a pretty straightforward recipe to doing a good rebuild, and in 2 years maybe the Wizards will be a bad rebuild too. They just at least have the benefit of having such a short window by the time we started talking about them that they haven't had the opportunity to make that many bad decisions, I guess.
Yeah. Oh well. On to the good teams again. What do you want to do with the Milwaukee Bucks?
They could have a shot. They could have a shot, kid. I'll give them a shot,
you got
kid.
a shot.
Hey.
Let's go. Let's talk about it. This team was... Last year, they bring Damian Lillard in. They're expected to be amazing. They weren't that. They fired the coach midway through the season, bringing Doc Rivers. Did not help. All season goes by. We all say they made some pretty good moves of what they had, bringing in Torian Prince, bringing in just, competent veterans with the small allocations they could muster. And we expected them to be good again. And I think they were that before the deadline. They were good, but they sputtered with injuries before the deadline and weren't really seen with positive momentum, I don't think.
Yeah.
Then the deadline comes, and they trade for 3 players that are perceived to be trash. And Kyle Kuzma, who was having a really bad year scoring from the field of the Wizards, was kind of a destructive force to the rebuild. Kevin Porter Jr., who has never been good at basketball in the NBA. He's consistently been negative in most parts of the game. And Jericho Sims, who is a fine bench pick. I don't have anything necessarily negative to say for him, but he isn't perceived as changing your life, right? He's just a competent backup center. And they go on a run. They win several games in a row. Kevin Porter Jr. has the best stretch of his career. He shoots 55% from mid-range. He has a triple-double in 19 minutes. He goes berserk. The Kyle Kuzma thing seemingly is working to perfection. They have the athletic wing that they've been needing next to Giannis. Feels like he was worth it to get rid of Chris Middleton, who's not reliable. And then they lose the last 2 games in a row to the Orlando Magic and the Cleveland Cavaliers, leading us to say, is that real? Or is them beating the bad Mavericks, the bad Hawks, the bad Mavericks? They beat the Nuggets, which is a good win.
Oh, they beat the Nuggets. Oh, wow.
Were those 3 wins real, or were the last 2 in which they looked a little less on top of the world after the deal? How do you feel about them and these new additions they made?
I don't feel good about them. They're here because Giannis is one of the best players on the planet, and Damian Lillard still looks very, very solid. I'm probably not as bullish on Dame as some people are, but I'm still like baseline level of respect for Damian Lillard, all-star level guy for sure. Relying on Kyle Kuzma, Kevin Porter Jr., and Bobby Portis to be a serious playoff team.
And Bobby Portis to come back from his fucking suspension and be able to play good basketball.
Well, I mean, worst about he won't be on PEDs anymore. So it's what does that Bobby Portis even look like? No, just kidding. I know he was framed. Everybody,
he was framed. So it's not woke. I get it. I'm on his side. I'm on the side.
I get it. Yeah, no.
Papa Cookie, get silly. Okay.
I don't believe in that. I don't believe in that trio. Bobby Portis is on the short list for me of most destructive players in basketball before this all happened. I really did not like the season he was having. I don't think that'll change when he comes back. Kevin Porter Jr., bad. It would go against everything I know about basketball if he just turned around and became like a good much less a good person, which fuck that guy for sure. Yeah, and I would also say that
super fuck him.
Bucks fans have some of the most flexible morals I've ever seen. For a guy to come in and your team is suddenly kind of promising for 30 minutes, and you're like, oh, this guy could do anything before. I'm super cool with him now because he had a triple double. That's insane. But
1, you're naive. 2, you're just weak as fuck for getting over it. Because so the 3 players you named I think fall into 3 distinct categories. I like the Jericho Sims addition because you mentioned Bobby Portis has been balls this year. They needed a backup big that can be competent. And especially in the non-Giannis minutes, if you're going to pair Giannis and Brook for most of their minutes to give them that spacing, I like Jericho Sims as an athletic backup big that's very cheap and can give you a little bit of rim protection. They desperately needed that. I think he has improved the defense in their bench units a considerable amount, and I like that addition. Kyle Kuzma, I wasn't super high on it because I didn't doubt the ability for him to come in and be better than he was in the Wizards. How could he not, right? The situation is going to be tangibly better. I doubt the ability that anything he does well, you take that, you obviously lose what Chris Middleton does well in a perfect world in which he's there and available. Yeah. He's never available, so I understand wanting to get rid of yourself out of that experiment and just ridding your hands of another injury-prone player that's old. When he was healthy, you were dangerous because you had a third ball handler that could be dangerous and create for others. Without that, I really doubt their championship ceiling of just relying on Giannis and Dame. I really like that third guy that can create and pass a little bit. Kyle Kuzma isn't that. So I do think he makes them better, and the equation could be worth it because Chris Middleton's health. I worry about the ceiling without a ball handler in that salary slot. And Kevin Porter Jr., I think if you're believing this is real, you're a fucking fool. He's shooting 57% from mid-range last time I checked. I'll check right now. Before that, his career average 44. This is an absolute insanity run. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe he just needed the situation to unlock him. And maybe
even if that's real, there's like I still probably wouldn't like the supporting cast
I was wrong.
of this team.
I was wrong. He's up to 58% from mid-range since joining the Bucks, even higher. Before that, 42% as a career high. And maybe his creation and ball handling is what you needed in the same way you needed Jericho Sims. You need a body who can do those things. Perhaps. If you think his defense will be tenable in a playoff series and he will provide anything of value against a good team like the Celtics, you have lost your fucking mind, and I wouldn't even consider relying on that in your head.
Yeah. I agree with pretty much everything you just said. I think when we talk about swapping Kuzma in for Middleton, it's a very rational to just be like, hey, Middleton's not going to be healthy. Let's get a guy in here. Let's get a warm body in here. And I think Kuzma... Hey, he honestly surpassed my expectations. I don't know what his averages are exactly. I can't imagine they're great, but just in terms of making the Bucks younger, more athletic, a little bit quicker, I think he's been fine. He's impressed me a little bit. But
he's not shooting well. He's at 53% effective field goal percentage, 33% from three, 68% at the rim. But his has been a very eye test thing where he is moving well, rebounding well, running in transition well, and doing the athletic wing stuff that they clearly needed next to an old man in Brook Lopez who isn't giving you any of that.
Yeah, and so you lose. I think without Chris Middleton, there's really not anybody on this team that maximizes Giannis as a cutter or an off-ball player. I really don't like the connection that him and Damian Lillard have together in that regard. The pick and roll that everybody talked about when the trade happened, it just hasn't developed to the extent that people were expecting. And so I thought Middleton was the last real bastion of hey, you get him the ball, instantly Giannis is a threat for a dunk because they just have that connection as pick and roll partners, as just off ball guys. That's not there anymore. I don't think Kuzma is ever going to hit that level. He's not that kind of passer. And then even Brook Lopez, I really don't love at this point.
He's really slow, man. He's really slow.
If you get into a matchup with Boston or Cleveland or New York, anybody would be happy to be like, hey, Brook, perimeter time. Let's go. Move your feet. Move your feet against
Jalen
Garland.
Brunson?
Yeah.
Garland? Donovan Mitchell? Derek White? God forbid Jason Tatum?
And so then the logical adjustment there is that Giannis might have to spend some time playing the 5. But then I worry about because I really enjoy Dame as a pick and roll player this year, and I think him and Brook Lopez is probably the best pick and roll set that the Bucks have. But if you can't play Brook for whatever reason, and it becomes Dame running the pick and roll with Giannis, I'm sure it will still be a productive offensive set compared to league average or whatever. But is it something that's gonna backpack you to a competitive series with a much more talented team in Boston or Cleveland or whatever? I don't really think so. And
that's why they got a shot.
Yeah, they got a shot.
We're talking about some flaws that prevent them from being runaway. This team is amazing. But at the end of the day, they have Giannis. They have Dame. They have, you mentioned, I guess they can do this with Giannis at center. That is something. That is a look. It's not horrendous. So
Giannis is incredible, man. I love
He's
Giannis.
Amazing.
It's respect for him specifically that gets them into this tier, I feel like.
I've been getting ratioed by Bucks fans because I tweeted the third game of the season. Third game after the deadline. I tweeted a passing joke because I was watching a terrible lineup when they were losing. And I said, Giannis has to set screens for Kevin Porter Jr. while Jericho Sims sits in the dunker spot. What did he do to deserve this? And they won 3 straight games and Kevin Porter Jr. had a triple-double. So they were ratioing the fuck out of me. And I'm like, oh, you naive souls. Just you wait. Just you wait.
Hey, going to war for Kevin Porter Jr. over 8 games of basketball. You're a good person. Yeah.
I won't even bring it up whenever I'm proven right and Kevin Porter Jr. is irrelevant in the playoffs. I'm not even going to bring it up again.
It's just such a ridiculous thing to have to circle back on. It's why are you making that happen? Why are you making us do that?
And there were my mentions. They were like, I hate these pseudo intellectuals that pretend they watch every team and doesn't know what they're talking about. And I'm like, no, you've watched 3 games of Kevin Porter Jr. and you think I need to respect him when I've seen 4 seasons of this motherfucker being ass. That's the difference. Nevertheless, I hope I want to see Giannis thrive and do well. So I hope it works out for Bucks fans and they're really good and they're in the conference finals. I don't have a lot of faith in the supporting cast.
Fuck either way. If it happened, I wouldn't feel any differently. I'm not gonna lie. Shout out to Giannis. It's cool and everything, but I'm not gonna.
I won't feel anything.
It's oh, whoa. No, I probably wouldn't feel that way.
What do you want to do with the Indiana Pacers? That feels to me like the definition of you are a playoff team.
No, I think they have a shot. I think they have a shot.
Everybody can't have a shot. You think they have a shot? When we say you got a shot, you think they have a shot of beating the Cavs or the Celtics in the second round? That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, fuck it. I think if we're talking about like, do the Knicks or the Bucks have a shot? I think they lack the top end talent, but I think they come in as like a lot more respectable in a number of different areas. If we talk about like, consistent level of two-way play over the last like 30 or 40 games, I think they're probably a much more consistent team than the Bucks or the Knicks. They just don't have Brunson or Giannis, and so people kind of hesitate to put them in that tier. But like, I really like what they've shown over like the last 30-ish games. Let me see. They're 25-12 in that span. They're the 6th best offense. They're the 12th best defense, 7th best net rating. In that span, Halliburton is 19 points, 9 assists on 65% true shooting. He's shooting 45% on 7 attempts a game. And so I think the question with Indiana here is, can they hit the nuclear levels of offense that we've seen them be capable of while still playing at a livable level defensively? And I really don't feel like that question is any more ridiculous than Kevin Porter Jr., Kyle Kuzma, Bobby Portis. I don't feel it. That's how I feel. If someone else like vehemently disagreed with it, I guess that's fine. But like, I don't know.
I just think it's a matchup based thing. That I think they're just as respectable as the Bucks in that way. I think what you're saying is no problem. I think they match up horrendously against the Cavs, and I have no reason to believe they have any type of shot against the Celtics, who are the Celtics,
Hey, they just played a little better in the clutch. Maybe that series goes 6 games. Who knows? Maybe.
And I listen, I'm a firm Tyrese Halliburton enjoyer. I am stickler for Tyrese Halliburton respect. He has been good after that horrendous start to the season, in which we all got worried because it was so goddamn horrendous that we were like, whoa, what is happening here? It doesn't make sense for him to be this bad as a scorer and a passer. Mm-hmm. He's largely back to where he was before the Linsanity run, where he averaged 27 for a month or whatever. Tyrese Halliburton isn't coming back as a volume scorer, but the respectable 20 points per game and elite playmaking, that's back. So I'm fully on board again with him being a guy that can lead your offense. They just don't have enough physical oomph against these big teams like the Cavs and the Celtics. Like, they're 29th in offensive rebounding rate. I don't feel like they have the best wing defending group. I know, shout out Aaron Nesmith. I love Aaron Nesmith when he's fully there.
Yeah.
He's great. But like, Benedict Mathurin has had a good defensive season for them. I don't have a ton of faith in like him.
You probably if you get him on an island, you're probably cool with it. If you're
and like Nembhard is awesome. Nembhard's two-way play and what he's unlocked for them after returning from that early injury. I love Andrew Nembhard. Isn't enough defensive talent to make up for who you're going against. Is the nature of the dominance of the Cavs of the two bigs, the Celtics, and their insane defensive ceiling with those 4 perimeter defenders. I don't feel like they have a shot just because of who they have to face and what advantage do they have over those teams? Just discipline and just grit and just being,
I guess,
working 10% harder than everybody else. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm just when I think about New York and I think about Milwaukee, I don't feel like Indiana's that far away.
They're not. Again, they're not in terms of how good they are, but like you can trick yourself and say, Giannis has a problem to deal with. The 2-man game with Dame, if they go with that rolling, that can give them problems and give you enough. Jalen Brunson's one of the best players in the world. That can give you enough. We can say Cat's going to shoot out of his mind. That's blah, 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 blah. Like, I don't know what the best case scenario is that the Pacers would excite me in that way.
Yeah, all right. Put him in playoff team then. I don't give a fuck. What do I care?
Like, I don't know.
This is a job. I'm clocking in and out, baby. I don't give a shit. Fuck this. I'm done, actually. Oh.
Shout out the Pacers, though. You could definitely beat the Knicks or the Bucks.
Shout out the Pacers. You hate them.
You can beat them. You hate them.
You're a dick. Yeah. Get him, Pacers fans. It's nobody. No. There's no one there. Caitlin Cooper starts like rating your mentions.
Shout out Caitlin Cooper. She's so smart.
Shout out Caitlin. Hey, smarter than I will ever be is Caitlin Cooper. I'll tell you that really much. Good. Like, yeah.
And again, they can definitely beat the Knicks or the Bucks. That's for damn sure. Like that, that if those series started today, Pacers would have serious consideration. I just don't know about those top 2 teams. But okay, Orlando Magic. What did we do with this team having the season from hell? Having their 3rd most important vital player in Jalen Suggs out for the season. Their KCP addition was a nightmare. Paolo Banchero got hurt after those initial 5 games, and he looked like God. and his comeback, and he's having a good past like 7 games or so. He's heating up after the All-Star break in terms of his scoring numbers, but the team's offense still isn't good. We still haven't really seen Franz and Paolo clicking at the same time for an extended period of time. Starting to feel kind of worried about that fit and how much better they both look separate. Topic for another day potentially. Mm-hmm. But overall, they're down to the 8th seed. They haven't had the dominant defense they had last year. I don't think they're ranked quite as high. And the offense is a goddamn nightmare.
Especially late.
What do we do with that? What do we do with this?
Well, I gave the Pacers hot take, so I want you to do the Magic. Where do you
Actually, they're on the Magic are 3rd in defense now, so I take that back. They're back up. But they're 109.5.
Since Suggs went out. What the fuck? So is that 3rd on the year?
Oh, yeah, 3rd in the year. Yeah, 3rd in the year. Okay, I didn't look since Suggs went out.
Well, I have Suggs since he went out. They're 29 games. They're the 14th ranked defense.
Okay, that feels about right because Suggs is so important there. Yeah, good point. So, they're mid.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the fucking 8th seed. They have the worst offense in the league. Without Suggs coming back to save the defense, they're not going to have a top 5 defense again. Their star players are so unbelievably good, but they are so unbelievably unimpactful together so far. And it's weird. And well, it's not weird because neither one of them are... I don't want to do this thing we did with Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And
it feels a lot like that. It feels a lot like that, though.
It does. And the thing is, we weren't wrong in the beginning about the Tatum and Jaylen Brown fit. They just both got better at distinct things that made them fit together as time went on.
And if the team wasn't so good, it would matter more. I also want to say that.
So like Jaylen Brown got a lot better as an off-ball player and as a one-on-one going downhill scorer because Jason Tatum got a lot better as a playmaker, drawing attention and like enabling Jaylen Brown. Like they both went other ways in development and complement each other well now. Mm-hmm. But there was a stretch when everybody was worried that they won't fit together. This is honestly worse. They are simply not as effective, especially Franz. The best stretch of Franz's career came with Paolo Banchero injured, and I don't think that's a coincidence. Yeah. I just don't. Like, Franz's on-ball slashing and playmaking ability got truly unlocked when he was the guy. And he gets minimized with Paolo there, and that's okay because Paolo is your most talented player that should take the reins, and you should figure out how to make your second option play around him. In some regards, it's a problem that Franz isn't malleable enough. But the way that Paolo Banchero approaches offense just isn't as conducive for everybody else as what Franz does as a playmaker. So it's just a tough fit that hasn't led to good offense for really any stretch of their career together.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't really think it's a coincidence that at this point in their careers, whenever Paolo's on and Franz off, the Magic take like a ton more tough twos. Not just Paolo specifically takes a lot of tough twos, but the team's offense as a whole winds up taking difficult mid-range shots a lot more consistently when it's Paolo playing that slashing role as opposed to Franz. I don't think that's a coincidence. And if you want to make the ceiling argument for Paolo with his physical tools and everything, that the apex of him, the idealized version of Paolo Banchero, is a better basketball player than the idealized version of Franz, that's fine. But I think now...
Yeah, that's true. That's definitely true. But are we going to get that? And are we going to get that anytime soon?
Yeah, in the playoffs.
I guess the real question is, do we have to recalibrate the timeline for this team? Because it seemed like they were ready to compete. And again, Jalen Suggs is out, and that makes a big difference. So let's put that out there that we are judging them without being whole. So that is a part of the equation we're not ignoring, Magic fans. But when you have your 2 star players who are both all-star talents individually, they're both completely healthy, and you have KCP who you just brought in who's healthy, you shouldn't be so reliant on Jalen Suggs. He shouldn't completely tank the ship, right? Like that sounds to me like there's other issues at play. And I don't know, like you have to have some long-term evaluation of how you're deploying these 2 stars, how you want to play offensively and put them best spots to succeed. And you also have to look around at what type of talent we want to succeed with around them because the guys in the door right now just aren't working together.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about a team that like, it's not that like they're future all-stars or anything. If both guys spent the whole season healthy, both guys would have been like all-stars to some degree. Like Franz would have been an all-star if he got to play that stretch without Paolo and he was healthy at the all-star break. And then Paolo, if it was just a normal year, all things considered, he probably would have been an all-star as like the focal point of the offense and everything. I do not anticipate a playoff appearance where the Orlando Magic look like a team that has 2 all-stars. It just doesn't feel like that's what we're moving towards. And I agree with the fact that like Suggs can't be the linchpin that holds all of that together. He can't take you from like incredibly scrappy team that nobody wants to see in the first round. Or really, I mean, with Suggs for a lot of the year, they were like a home court advantage team. They were like top 4 in the East or whatever. And obviously that's fallen off because of the health stuff. Suggs can't be the difference maker there. And if you want to talk about like Tatum and Brown improving, I think if like Paolo ever gets to the level of like off-ball defensive prowess, help side rim protection type shit that is imperative to the Celtics scheme, that Tatum is one of the best like wing forwards in the league at. If Paolo ever gets near that, it would be one of the biggest defensive progressions in the NBA. Like he's so far away from doing that, and it's such a big part of how the Boston Celtics accommodate playing both of those guys.
And Franz Wagner has to shoot consistently. You know,
that's true. Yes.
Like it's easy to pin it all on Paolo because Franz plays a little better as a lead guy, but you have Paolo who's going to continue to develop. He has the guy with the ceiling. You're going to build around him and figure out a way to maximize that. Franz has to shoot more consistently. He has to develop a better quick trigger 3 and be able to contribute to that fit. Like it goes both ways. Mm-hmm. Paolo has more ways to go, I think, for his role because his role is more important, and he is not up to par yet for what's needed for a lead engine of an offense. Yeah. Like he doesn't shoot above average for his position at the rim, doesn't shoot above average for his position in mid-range, doesn't shoot above average for his position from 3, doesn't play make that much above average for his position. Well, I guess he does. I'll give him
what's this guy do?
I'll give him playmaking. He doesn't defend above average for power forward. He's about average at all those things, and he's incredible at getting to the line and being physical and like drawing insane amounts of free throws. He needs to find a few of those skills that really develop. Hopefully it's a shooting touch. Hopefully, I pray to God, it's the finishing at the rim with that size and being dominant. That's what really needs to come around. But we're just not at the point where they're ready to be the top 2 players on a team, I think.
Yeah.
And they might get there. They might get there. It's just not here yet.
Even if the playoffs are complete ass this year, I think there will be a lot of reactionary stuff to that. I would still like to see them run it again one more time. Because for sure. I think the versions that we saw of everybody at the beginning of the season, where Paolo was incredibly aggressive going downhill, where the outside shot in very limited run was still falling for Franz Wagner and Jalen Suggs. They both shot it really well to start the year. If that's the case, when everybody's 100%, and Paolo has kind of regressed into this version of himself, taking a lot of difficult jumpers because the core injury that he sustained is really limiting him, then maybe we do see the sick-ass version of the Magic again next year. It's not outside the realm of possibility. I just think heading into this postseason, it would be surprising. It'd be cool. I wouldn't be upset if it happened, but it would surprise me.
Yeah, all you need is one of these stars, or ideally both of them, to make the leap and like get better at their respective roles. So you definitely run it back. You're not in territory of like, should we blow this up or separate these guys yet? You give it more time, but yeah, you got to see some developments that raise the floor of this team because the ceiling is obviously there. We all know what they can be when they're fully healthy and how high they can get if Paolo never gets hurt and if Suggs never gets hurt. You need that floor in place. Every team is into with injuries.
Sucks. The fact that they're the 8th seed is really it's like if you have 2 All-Stars, you should not be in the play-in in the East.
Every team will deal with injuries throughout the year. You need to be equipped to deal with that.
Okay, yeah. They're mid, but the 2 All-Stars-ish level guys, it could change in the playoffs. It's possible.
Yeah, maybe. Again, we're not putting them in rebuilding territory, so being mid, like. They're only mid because it's the last season.
Yeah, it's one thing to be like came back. Hawks or Heat mid. It's a different kind of mid for the Magic.
It's an unfortunate level of mid. We're not out on them by any means.
Who's left? Is it the Pistons? Just the Pistons?
It is the Pistons and the Sixers. Pistons.
Oh God. Okay.
It sounds to me like you're a playoff team, Pistons, which is an incredible achievement from where you were last year. This is hang a banner for the Pistons being in a solid tier with the Indiana Pacers for the first time in about 5 seasons of being terrible.
Yeah, Pistons are sick. I mean, if you want to talk about a team being spearheaded by one of the best players in the league, really, I don't even want to give like the best young player qualifier. Cade's been one of the only guys averaging 25 and 10 this season. I don't know, like there's been some concerns, but by all means, incredible year from Cade. spearheaded not only from some really high-level veteran play, if you talk about Malik Beasley and Tobias Harris lately, but also promising young guy play. I like Asar Thompson. I like Ron Holland. I like Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duren. He's turned it up defensively a little bit lately. And so
he's been playing really good.
I think they're in kind of playing with house money territory where you want to see in this postseason certain young guys on the roster step up and be like, hey, I'm a piece for the future. I'm a guy that you can put next to Cade and we'll be good. And no matter what the outcome of whatever playoff series you get is, if you get those like signifiers from some of these young pieces, if you get a promising performance from people, then you come out on the other side happy with the season. It's all gravy.
Yeah, exactly. There's not really anything we need to see in the playoffs other than Cade live up to the hype, right? He needs to continue to play at his level, ideally rise in the playoffs, but get his game off and show that he's equipped to handle this pressure as a lead on-ball player. Because even if they're better next year and continue to make strides from where they are right now, you're going to be a Cade-centric team where Cade, you got to keep learning how to carry, right? Unless they trade for an all-star this summer, which is always possible in the modern NBA where all-stars become available like candy. That's possible.
They should have got LaVine, dude. LaVine went for nothing.
Agree.
They should have got LaVine, man.
I agree. But they didn't because they want to wait for Jaden Ivey to see if he can be that guy. So in some regards, you just, let everybody else cook, see what you can get in the beginning of the year next year with Ivey, and it's established from there. But it's honestly just about getting the playoff reps this year and learning through fire, as every young team has to do at some point.
Yeah. I don't know. I think if you get like the 3-6 matchup with New York, if you want to talk about like Cade, the Cade translating to the playoffs or whatever, Cade could have a sick ass series against New York.
Yeah,
that's totally in the cards. So
him walking them down.
Yeah.
I feel like Cade's gonna be very scary in a playoff setting. I feel like Cade's gonna be one of those players that it's like, even if his team is undermanned, he's going to give you so much fucking headaches that he's perpetually going to be one of those players that were like, you don't want to see him in a playoff setting. He can really push a good team.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you talk about like we always we just harped on Paolo for not being a good finisher at the rim or whatever. Cade isn't a good finisher at the rim, but it's because he's like, if I could get within 6 feet of the rim, I'm either going to like go 60% on this mid-range shot, or I'm going to be able to throw a lob and Duren or whoever Thompson is going to dunk it. And so it's just, he has a lot in his bag in terms of like just really reliable playoff tools, stuff that we've seen other guys consistently translate into the postseason. So I'm excited. I like him a lot. He's cool.
Same. Okay. Last team we have to talk about here, Philadelphia 76ers. They're kind of hard to gauge because they're not a playoff team. They damn sure don't got a shot. They damn sure won't be one of the teams in the finals. I don't even think you can call them mid because they're not going to be in the playoffs. They're 11th seed. But are they rebuilding? I guess they're forced into a rebuild, but they're not. What the fuck did we do with them?
You want to do their own tier? You want to do 76ers tier? I feel way more confident in like a 76ers tier than a Bulls tier, where it's like, and 2 of the worst contracts in basketball for the next 4 years. Your picks, like we touched on the other day, their picks aren't completely fucked, but they're tied up for a little bit. You can't immediately launch into a rebuild. And then a couple of promising young guys in Maxey and McCain. And so I think
they have their own tier. We're labeling
it's just dark days. Yeah, dark days ahead, really.
I labeled it hell. That's where the 76ers go. You're just down bad, right? And it's unfortunate. Like we talked about it at length on the show. You can't contend because your MVP level player is hurt and probably always will be hurt. Your secondary star player who you brought in this summer to be the max contract guy, Paul George, is cooked, has been hurt, isn't as good as he used to be. You're bad. You have young players, but you can't rebuild because you still have Tyrese Maxey. I mean, you still have Joel Embiid. So you're stuck in between. It's just hell. It's just the worst of every world you could imagine. And if I swear to God, if they give the OKC Thunder the 7th pick in the draft, you will see unmatched chaos in the streets of Philadelphia.
Daryl Morey, I'm coming for you, bro. You give this under the 7th pick, I'll come see you, big guy.
Trey Johnson goes to the fucking Thunder and just revitalizes their bench. Oh my god,
perfect. Yeah, they're a bench that really needs revitalization.
Exactly, correct.
Like their 13th man would change my fucking life.
Keep in mind, they're also going to add Nikola Topic next year, who's having a redshirt year for an ACL tear.
And they get whatever. I mean, the Clippers pick isn't going to be good or anything, but like. They have a million swaps over the next 8 years. So, yeah, I guess that's a good note to end on. The Thunder will be good for a long time.
Look at us, always finding a way to glaze the Thunder no matter what the video topic is.
What do you want people to comment if they're still here?
Comment what you think about the Magic. Like, I don't even want you to comment a specific word this time. I want to know your guys' thoughts because, I'm somewhat of a hater on one of these players, and I've been labeled that, but I am just genuinely perplexed on what to think about this team, balancing all my biases here. Like, they are in such a bad, interesting spot, but also good if things go well. Tell us your guys' thoughts.
Guys, comment genuinely perplexed if you're still here. I'm genuinely perplexed. Guys, comment. All right.
Talk to you all next week.
Yeah, adios.